If that fails, everyone,
Exactly.
everything crashes. And so
our financial system was built on lies.
Yeah.
What do we do? And his advisors say the economy will probably fix itself because it kind of did the last few times.
I completely disagree. Okay. Here we go. Now maybe we'll.
Okay. So
welcome everybody to the Black and White History Podcast. Make sure to like and subscribe. We are your hosts, Christian and
Herbert Hoover. What a loser. He gassed a whole bunch of vets on the White House lawn. Can you believe it? I can believe it. I'm Jordan.
Great Depression. Not that great. I could have made it better.
I've been way more depressed than Herbert Hoover ever was. Yeah, let's dive into
Crash
it.
On.
Oh, I see what you did there.
Yeah. Yeah. We're kind of just covering the Great Depression itself.
Yes.
So
Herbert Hoover was there.
Yes, he was there, and then FDR kind of took the reins.
Yes.
What are your initial thoughts on?
I think Herbert Hoover gets a bad rap for the Great Depression.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't cause it, and he was. I mean, there were a lot of factors, like with everything historical. He didn't cause it. When it started to happen, it was motivated by like a new level of economic, like simultaneous economic systems failing, and in ways that hadn't been seen before. And so he had like economists and he knew the economy and had, literacy in that area. And he was like, all right, well, we're just going to do this, which is not nothing, but not in hindsight. We have the gift of hindsight. It turned out he didn't do enough. But honestly, when you are looking back fairly, there's not much he could have done. Or if he did do it, it ran a separate opposite risk. So like he gets a bad rap. The Great Depression gets pinned on him, but that's what happens when any sort of disaster happens under a president's watch. Like the circumstances were set up years before for this to happen. Like the stock market bubble, he did not create it. That was the 1920s.
Yeah. Why don't we start? Maybe we should start there.
Yeah.
It's like, what is the Great Depression?
Yeah. The Great Depression, it was a bad time. Don't recommend
or what
it.
Caused it, I guess.
Yeah. Well, that's a complex question. So the Great Depression was caused, most people would say, there's argument about it still, but most people have settled on like, it was multifaceted. So the stock market in the 1920s had boomed. It had exploded. And so previously, it was mostly just businesses and really rich people moving money around, buying stocks, this, that, and the other. Now in the 1920s, since manufacturing and industry had gotten so far, now like regular little people could invest in the stock market, like had enough money to invest in the stock market. And now they started doing what were called margin buys. So that is basically buying stock on credit. And so you would pay 10% of the stock value and borrow the other 90% because the stock market was like straight to the moon on a rocket. So as long as that stock keeps going up, you can make your payments, you can take your profit, and then the bank's happy, you're happy, everyone's rich. The problem is that it's not based on real money, like it's based on debt.
Yeah, right.
So when the stock market bubble burst and it collapsed, that caused the second factor, which is bank failures. So
here, just to even get further context with the idea of using bank loans to buy stocks, was roughly around 40% of consumer debt was in the stock market.
Yeah, that's crazy.
So nearly half of the country's consumer debt was in the stock market. So
not houses or cars or land, stocks. Stocks, that is, when you say like playing the stock market is like the casino, that's not super duper accurate because over a long enough time it does go up. But in the short term, like in 0 to 5-ish years, like it can be basically a casino. It goes up 30%, and then it drops 60%. And the people who get their heads chopped off on a roller coaster are the ones who get off in the middle. So if you're going to put your money in the stock market and park it for 20 years, you will almost certainly make a decent return on that money.
Well, and not only that, but but banks are also giving out loans that they themselves don't even have.
Correct.
So they're also banking on the stock market to keep going.
Yes.
So it's basically, if that fails, everyone,
exactly,
everything crashes. And so
our financial system was built on lies.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you're borrowing, you're betting and borrowing money back and forth, all assuming that a stock can only go up in value.
Mm-hmm.
And that is an incorrect assumption.
Well, yeah. And it's kind of like two different things happen. So when you have the stock markets crash,
they do, every so often.
Yeah. But every time they crash, it's not like we're just in the depression.
No.
Like, it'll cause a recession, but then it
comes back up.
It comes back up. So like why we were in this depression, because there had been other Great Depressions.
Mm-hmm.
They would even call them like the Great Depression, things like that.
The crisis of 1902 or
1907. 1907. There's like the 1870s. There's like the railroad crash and stuff. So the idea of like stuff like this happening and there being like 20% unemployment, happen like once a generation.
Sure.
I guess.
And it was rough for a year or two or three, but like it did get
Things
better.
did recover quicker than this one did. And so but the depression was not because the stock market crashed, but because, like I said earlier, the banks didn't even have money to replace what they had already been giving out. And so that's kind of where the real problem
because when you hear that the stock market crashed, you want to get your money, like your physical actual money, out of that gambling casino and put it in your pocket under your mattress. And so when you go to the bank and the bank says, we don't actually have $11 billion in cash in the safe. We've got like $40 and Johnny just took it. So we have no money. Bank is closed, no more finance. And you go to the next bank to try to get money. And they also have no more money.
Well, and you go to the banks that you're also financing with overseas that have all been, I guess we should briefly get into the Treaty of Versailles.
Yes.
After World War I, we have the Treaty of Versailles. It's basically Europe, particularly like Germany, Italy.
Yeah. Central powers.
Yes, Central powers. All the bad guys in World War I owe us $200 gigajillion.
$1 gajillion favillion dollars.
And so, but while they're trying to figure out that debt, our own Federal Reserve and everything is also still involved on making sure that financially relying on each other.
We need to keep the system going, but you can't get blood from a rock.
Yeah.
Germany is destroyed and has been blockaded and starving for the past 5 years. They don't have any money. And so you could tell them you owe us infinite dollars. They ain't got them.
Part of it was also they were like Germany, for example, was on top of everything that they owed, Britain and like
France and
France and US and like Canada
and the other Central Power countries.
Was they were also taking out additional loans to pay other things up front in order to, to basically...
You're paying your credit card bill by getting out another credit card.
Yeah, you're digging yourself a hole to get out of, trying to get out of a hole by digging yourself deeper kind of thing. So, and so then when someone like Germany can't keep taking out money from our banks, then they're screwed in a way that's even worse than before. So
they're triple screwed.
Yeah.
And now they can't pay us.
It's like hard to like wrap my mind around it. Yeah. But I think that's kind of like
that's why it was why this was the Great Depression. Because normally you can borrow money from someone's got some money. Nobody had any money. Yeah. And if they did, they were holding on to it. So the other thing too that helped accelerate the deflationary spiral. So you have inflation, which we are familiar with, which is the value of your dollar, it goes down. So a loaf of bread costs $1 million or whatever. That's inflation. Deflation is there's
not enough money.
There's not enough money to in the system. There's just not enough. So bread's $1. No one has $1.
Yeah.
So that is a different problem. So when that happens, businesses start failing because they can't pay their employees because no one's buying the products because no one has any money. That business fails and it cascades up the chain. So the bread factory can't get their flour because the flour factory can't pay their workers. And then the farmers who also bet and loaned and borrowed for their farm supplies and seed and fertilizer, they lost all their money. They can't grow anything. And there was a dust bowl.
Yeah, we'll see if we have time to get to
that happened. So that's the thing. So up and down the chain is what I mean by like multi-system failure. Yeah. There was nowhere to get money. And so normally what we would do now is called quantitative easing. Basically, the government, the Federal Reserve, prints a bunch of money to put into the system to stimulate the economy. Hey, you don't have any money. Here's some money. Go buy stuff. Mm-hmm. They could have not really. They didn't do that. Couldn't do it because of the gold standard. So gold is, there's only so much of it, and everyone in the world agrees that 1 ounce of gold is worth this much money. So you can't mess with the price of it to make your money worth more. Mm-hmm. If the federal government put a bunch of paper money into the system, and then everyone who just saw all those banks fail when they tried to get their money out, now they go and try to get their money out in gold. There's only so much gold. Now the US has no gold. Mm-hmm. Now we can't trade with anyone. So that they couldn't do that. They didn't want to do it for that reason. So we're kind of stuck spiraling down.
Cool. Now, Herbert Hoover.
Herbert Hoover comes in and says, oh my God, what do we do? And his advisors say, the economy will probably fix itself, because it kind of did the last few times.
I completely disagree. Okay. Here we go. Now maybe we'll...
Okay. So obviously that's an oversimplification. But like, okay, the deflationary spiral, the way you combat that, so you have your monetary policy, which is like interest rates and stimulus and putting money in and taking money out and this, that, and the other. That's monetary policy. And then there's budgets, how we spend the money. That's fiscal policy. And the Federal Reserve is doing monetary policy with theoretical economics and all that good stuff. And so how would you counter a deflationary spiral is put money into the system. If you put too much money into the system, now you've created inflation. Mm-hmm. You've devalued what little money people have. And now that loaf of bread that no one could buy, even at $1, now that loaf of bread costs $5. So even fewer people can buy it. And they didn't want to do that. So they said the market will correct itself. They will find some niche where people are still making money, people are still buying and selling things, and that will start building back up from there. And they did stimulate certain industries to try to kickstart that, but it wasn't enough.
Well, yeah, I guess, but I think it's one of those things where it's not necessarily, it's not enough. I think it's just like, it's like the idea of, we're going to keep meddling with this to fix it. Oh, it's not working. Okay, we got to keep meddling. Oh, it's not working. Oh, we got to keep meddling. Mm-hmm. And then FDR comes in like, they just didn't do enough. Mm-hmm. It's like, well, is it that they didn't do enough, or is that they kept doing too many things, and so it kept making the problem worse? And so the default reaction is like, well, he just wasn't doing anything.
Yeah.
So Herbert Hoover was, he was a pretty popular politician.
Very popular.
Through like World War I all the way through the 1920s and everything, and like was actually known even before World War I. So he even actually had an autobiography come out like 1909. Mm-hmm. And he talks very favorably about a lot of the progressive era stuff. So with like economics and everything, even talking about like, let's do like the 8-hour workday, very strong unions and things like that. And then he works as the Secretary of Commerce,
right,
for the Harding and
Coolidge
administration, but even like, which is basically like helping involving economics, not just in the US, but also like overseas and stuff. And so with like, this was especially important because post World War I, all of Europe was really poor and like destroyed. And so the ideas of like sending aid and things like that, which he, basically got that position because he did that similar thing with Wilson during World War I. And even post, he even wrote up his own reconstruction plan on like, because the U.S. went into a recession,
right,
kind of thing. And so I'm like, okay, here's all these things we can do to try to boost everything up. And so basically, I just say all this because like that kind of, just that by itself kind of cuts against the stereotype that history is kind of put on him as just kind of like the laissez-faire, do nothing, let's let it figure out on its own. And so by the time when you get to the Great Depression, so much of what he tried to do was actually very similar to what FDR did. It just, maybe it wasn't as far,
right?
But him being labeled as the do nothing, whatever, evil, rich politician guy, I think a lot of it was from like propaganda from the FDR administration. And
we need someone to blame for this.
Whenever there's like something bad happens, you just look at the guy at the top and just blame them.
It's his fault.
But the weird thing about it though is like when FDR was campaigning, and this was his vice president said this, was that one, you have FDR going around saying, oh, he's doing nothing to help you. And then you have his VP going around, and FDR too would say this too, was like, oh, he's turning us into a socialist state. So it's like, well, wait, which is
what
it?
do you want?
Yeah. So depending on where they're at, who they're talking to, and how they can get their messaging across, they're just going to like, it's, death by a thousand cuts.
That's how you win 4 terms, baby.
Sure, yeah.
Give them what they want. Yeah, when I say...
And we can go into... I'll just speak a second, but I'm saying we can go into... Because I think it's really interesting seeing what his policies, Hoover's policies were on how to break out of this depression, and then comparing it to FDR's. And it's like almost the same in like many instances. Not all instances, but in many instances, it's like very similar mindset.
Yeah.
So anyway, but go ahead.
When I say he didn't do enough... It's similar to what you're saying. Like the principles between Hoover and FDR were very similar in principle. It was the scale.
Yeah.
And in a point in Hoover's favor, you have the legitimate fear of runaway inflation stopping you from just dumping money into the economy. And this had never happened like this before. There was always some way to get out of it, and there just wasn't. So by the time, and also just like a timing thing too, like by the time you get a year or two in and you realize, oh, this thing it's not correcting the way that we would expect it to. So I give him credit for being incrementalist and not trying to just like yank the emergency brake and do something crazy. And without like nuance and understanding, it would be easy to say, well, FDR dumped a whole bunch of money in and did all this stuff and it seemed to work, and Hoover didn't. But they are forgetting that FDR also had a big old war. And like you said, they had similar ideas on how to do it. FDR just didn't have like the brakes to not promise to do it all at one time. But also you do have the social pressure of like, hey, this thing is not turning around, and people are, Hoover famously said, no one starved, but it's like, well, you got dang close, man. You got pretty close. So the pressure building of like, no, don't worry, we're going to do this. It's going to be nice and easy. It'll be fine. We'll come out of it. And then people are not coming out of it. And so the panic starts to set in. So like psychologically, it was so like the Great Depression was so damaging psychologically. Like my mother-in-law's mother, so I guess my grandmother-in-law, would not throw out any box. There's an attic full of boxes just in case you needed it, or like spare parts and stuff, because you couldn't buy anything new. You had to fix everything. So it like scarred that generation so deeply that we're still dealing with some of the trickle effects.
Well, it's like the whole stuff money in your mattress kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Like that, where that kind of
because we've been burned before and never again. And I understand. So like,
I'm just saying, like, I'm not even saying whether or not they had, because this is now, we're getting into more modern politics stuff where it's like biases are going to show more than they would beforehand. And so whether or not people agree with more government intervention and things doing these things, or maybe they don't like it, that's not really my point. My point is more just like the idea of Hoover. This was basically the like false picture of how Hoover's legacy turned into, was that he was this, meddling, I don't care, I'm going to sit my ivory tower guy.
Let them eat cake.
Yeah.
The president, people are starving.
Yeah. And then
throw
FDR,
$30 in there.
Right. And then FDR comes down on the big cloud and he just saves everybody.
Here's the solution that we could have done the whole time. It's like, we're kind of doing that.
Or maybe like another way to put it is Hoover was, what's the kid who tells a joke in class and no one hears it except for FDR, and then he repeats it, says it louder, and then everyone laughs. That's kind of like what fair. I'm trying to illustrate here.
That is a fair, yes, because I've been both of those kids. And it feels great to win, and it really sucks when it was my joke. So I made a podcast so everyone knows.
I guess with that, I'll just say the part that becomes dangerous with that type of historical framing, because it's like, okay, well, whatever, who cares? But now it's kind of created this, and I guess I'll show my hand a little bit. It's created this false dichotomy where, that's the picture that was painted of like how it went down. Doing nothing made this worse. Doing all these other, doing something made it better. Every time now there's like some recession, or
we gotta
anything.
dump
It's
money
like,
in.
oh, well, now we have to do, because now we have history to look back and see, you know, how Hoover's version messed it up. FDR was the right way, so we should do it more closer to FDR.
It's survivorship bias.
Sure, yeah.
So like, oh, that worked, so we're gonna do it again. It's like, that worked in that circumstance, but also had so many follow-on things that, like, for FDR's plan to work again, you would need a world. You would need a world war, a massive. You would need a whole bunch of stuff for that plan to work, and the odds of that happening again perfectly and still working are almost zero, because it's just different. And like you said, it shifted the Overton window of what the government is supposed to do when you have a massive economic crash. And some things are good, like the federal deposit insurance.
Sure.
Some definitely good things came out of it, for sure. But like the philosophy, the philosophical shift of this is what the government can do and should do. Reasonable people can disagree on whether the juice was worth the squeeze. Because we got out of a depression, but there were a lot of factors into that.
Yeah, I mean, I think with Hoover, there's things that are very obvious, like very quickly tainted his legacy in terms of you know, some of his ideas and executive orders and things like that he pushed through. And then there's other things where it's like, actually, that was, you know, maybe one good idea out of like 3 bad ones or something, but like, there's still a broken clock is still right twice a day. So like, the Hoover Dam, using government spending to create jobs, like that kind of thing.
Infrastructure.
I think was infrastructure and things like that. Like those are actually useful, you know, things. And so like
one of those where it's like, isn't the government supposed to be doing that anyways? It's like, yes. Why didn't you do it before?
But like, then you get like the Smoot-Hawley tariff, where you start in the middle of this big depression, you start tariffing other countries, which naturally raises your prices up. Tariffing countries that also don't have money because they're still suffering post World War I. So then that just creates this huge calamity on top of a calamity.
But it made sense. We love a good tariff. It made sense. Like, we don't have that many jobs. We need to protect the jobs that we have and keep the money supply in our country and not send it to other countries. So we're going to raise our tariffs. And it didn't work in the exact way that you said. So like, they're trying stuff out in real time, stuff that should work, and because of the circumstances did not work.
Well, it's a lot of like throwing things against the wall and seeing what sticks.
It was panic.
So then you have like
people were jumping out of the windows. We got to do something. Pull the tariff lever. I don't know.
So then another thing Hoover does that similar to FDR is, I don't think FDR did much with tariffs, but in terms of like raising taxes, especially for the wealthy. It went up from, with Hoover, 25% to over 60%. Where your income is being taxed. And then there was increasing federal spending by 40%.
That's a lot.
A ton.
That's a lot.
Ton of money. It's a lot of money.
40%. What a number.
The Agricultural Marketing Act, which issued the newly created Federal Farm Board with all these new bureaucracies are popping up with Hoover. Very similar to FDR.
The EPA.
The EPA is a little later, but just in terms of with here, I think it was the EPA like the 70s?
No, that was Nixon.
$500 million of a revolving fund to issue the loans for agricultural cooperatives to stabilize commodity prices. So kind of like with the Federal Reserve, you like artificially change the interest rates on like homes and things like that. Kind of things, but with crops and farming.
We're going to make oranges be about the same price, not subject to market conditions, which, again, there's pluses and minuses to that. Yeah, oranges are always going to be $1 or $2. That's just how much they are. But also, like, I like corn, but because they subsidize corn so much for all the other corn products, who knows how much corn actually should cost? Like, maybe we don't like corn as much as the dollars and cents say we do. Maybe we want sorghum or hemp or something like that. So, you know, it's all about, like, do you want, I think you said it, like, one side wants the outcome of everyone can buy oranges at a fair price, and we don't care what we have to do and what rights or freedoms or whatever thing we have to do to get to that endpoint. And then the other side is, well, we would also want that endpoint where oranges are roughly the same price and people can afford them, but we need to look really carefully at how much we're willing to shave away at the stuff in the middle And instead of oranges always being $1, maybe oranges are $3, but we get to choose whether or not we farm oranges.
Yeah, right.
So, and I almost said reasonable people can disagree, but I don't think on the end point of my analogy, I don't think reasonable people can disagree.
Sure. Yeah, it's like, you know, I don't want, if we just give homeless people houses,
yeah,
boom, that just fixes, you know. But then it's like, well, hold on a second. What does that do to the housing market? How does it lower, you know, are they going to take care of the houses? What happens if they can't afford them anymore?
Where are we getting these houses?
Yeah,
How are you paying for the people to build the houses and the materials? Like, yeah, but everyone needs a house. It's like, oh, generally I agree. Yeah. I agree. But there's a lot of stuff in between. Like, how do we make that happen? However you got to do it. Like, there's a lot baked into however that has to happen. It's a lot baked in. And historically, a lot of people have died for the stuff in between to get to the end thing. And the end thing wasn't really even great.
Yeah. I guess that's just always how politics and economics are going to be.
That's just how people are.
Yes, yeah. But both him and FDR have this policy where they don't want wages to go down and they don't want prices to go down. And so how they end up doing this separately, and this is like, I guess I'll say more so with Hoover, is he meets with a few of the biggest industrial CEOs, Henry Ford and
the Legion of Doom.
Yeah, right. Yes. And Alfred Sloan and Pierre DuPont. So, you know, GM Motors and gets them to keep wages the same. But then there's this idea where they're, you know, we're going to take a hit on that. So how about we do what's called work sharing, which is normally you'd wear, you know, say 5 days a week, you know, whatever, 8 hours a day. That's not quite baked in yet to the system, but, you know, for this analogy, let's say what it is. So instead, you would then work 4 hours a day every day, but you'd keep your wages the same. Or you would just work every other day, but you'd still keep the wages the same.
That sounds like a 50% pay cut with more steps. Look what we did, guys.
Right. And then once FDR comes in, and I'll get into some of his policies and stuff, he kind of like builds off that even more so to where, because that kind of thing, of course, it's going to hurt. Naturally, it's just going to hurt small businesses more. Yeah. And it's going to hurt big businesses, but not in the same way. And so it's going to just create this unintentional monopoly now. So you start seeing monopolies get more reinforced.
Unintentional monopoly.
Yeah, right.
Because if you think the Ford Motor Company, GM Motors, and DuPont Chemicals, like if you want a chemical, it comes from DuPont. Yeah. If you want a car, it comes from GM or Ford in the 1920s and early 30s. So like, okay, I guess we'll do, like, anytime you raise wages or increase taxes or something like that, the companies don't eat those losses. They pass them on to the consumer. And if you are if you are a company that produces a commodity or something that everyone needs or uses, like, I don't know, a chemical that everyone needs for manufacturing or oil or whatever, it doesn't matter what the price is. People are going to have to buy it. Yeah. So you can say, oh, well, we're taxing the big businesses 9 million%. Wow, good for you. Now all of my gas is $40 a gallon. Why did that happen? Oh, those bad businesses, we'll just tax them more. Yeah. And it's like, it's just a shell game of money, because their options are to charge you more for the product or go out of business. And they're not going to go out of business. Yeah. And if you're going to keep buying the product, whatever I make it cost, why would I just choose to go out of business? Yeah. So it just doesn't work.
ExxonMobil always has something in their back pocket.
Yeah, it's called money. Yeah. They always have money and oil in their back pocket. The things that run the world.
Yeah. So when FDR comes through, and this again, this is the problem, like the Agricultural Adjustment Act, where he's giving billions of dollars to farmers to not grow food. He's trying to keep prices high. And if you keep prices high, then wages high, then like it'll fix deflation and it'll kind of just like everything will kind of work out in the ends and stuff. And so, and then also telling, in order to keep products low, not only paying them to not grow food, but actually the government's buying livestock and farms just to destroy it. So it keeps shortages going. And so
keep demand high and supply low.
Yeah. Which again, pretty similar to Herbert Hoover's philosophy, but maybe it's like a step further in that direction.
Step more totalitarian.
Yeah, right.
Like Herbert Hoover never slaughtered baby cows.
Yeah,
that I know
right.
of. It probably did. I don't know. It's not written down, so it didn't happen.
So by the time the end of the 30s come by, it's like 1939, FDR's Treasury even comes out and starts talking about how like the New Deal is a disaster, and it needs to be either there's a lot of infighting now happening even in FDR's cabinet on either just abandon it completely, or we need to just like put our foot on the brake and dial things back a bit, because like multiple recessions are happening throughout the years. Because remember, he was elected 4 terms, he barely serves a 4th one, but still at least 12 years worth of this going on, and they're still in the depression. You know, things are like kind of better. It's kind of almost creating just a new normal. You know, you experience something for a decade, I guess it's just kind of.
If you would have told me 10 years ago that I was going to pay almost $6 a gallon for gasoline, I would not have believed you. It was around 2 or 3. Now it's around 6, and it's not going to go down because you need gas. And if you have proven that you will pay $6, why would I ever charge you less?
Exactly. Yeah. So his treasury, Henry Morgenthau, says, "We are spending more than we have ever before, and it does not work. I say after 8 years of this administration, we have just as much unemployment as when we started, and an enormous debt to boot." Now, luckily, on the unemployment side of it, that's 1939. 2 years later, unemployment takes a nosedive because good old-fashioned war. So now that there's a draft with World War II, unemployment now tanks.
You don't have a job? I'm going to give you a job against your will.
So, yay, we fixed
the economy,
It didn't
boys.
go down below 14% about until World War I or World War II started. So, and that's the thing, is this type of depression, like hard recession at least, did happen during World War I. And some of these government spending plans were used like under Woodrow Wilson. But the difference, though, is that we came out of it a lot faster because it was already in the middle of the war. With FDR, this was everyone was already shipped off. Population was a lot lower, and there's more jobs available because there's less demand and all that kind of stuff.
And we had a bunch of stuff to produce.
Yes, right, yeah, and we were making money from military operations and stuff. Anyway.
People were loaning money and borrowing money from us, and we were borrowing money from people because there was money to borrow and be borrowed for.
There was no Treaty of Versailles yet, so
not yet.
So it's kind of like taking that, be like, oh, if we just repeat that here during peacetime, then we'll probably get the same results. And it didn't. So it kind of goes to show like peacetime problems aren't going to shape out the same way as like when you're in the middle of a war. It's just completely apples to oranges, kind of thing. Anyway, I don't know. I feel like
It's true. I mean, yeah. When you have a need to produce things, and you have a customer that needs to buy them, then that sets up the boomer generation. And in the 20s and 30s, we didn't need, like, cars were cool, but we got along fine without them. People didn't need to produce cars. They wanted to. And we had a lot of money, and people bought a lot of stuff on credit because they wanted to. They didn't need to. They wanted to make more money, which is fine. That's cool. That's fine. But then when you're building it on a not firm foundation of actual like market need, then it's fake. Like, talk about AI. Like, is there a market need for as much money as we're putting into this product? Like, it maybe for some applications, I won't pretend to know, but like, dump everything we have into this one industry. And it's like, well, that industry better work or we're all screwed. And the consumer versions of the AI that we're spending $11 gajillion on are not great. I mean, you know what? They are great, but they're not as great as the money that we're spending. And so like that mismatch is the same mismatch that we saw in the early depression of the stock market going up and being valuable is good until it's not. And when it's not, it is really not. But on the way up, it's great. So, and I'm not trying to be like a doomer and like predict like this is about what's going to, I mean, because I don't know. This is a very complex thing. It could solve all of our problems, like, sure. But again, just like with anything, there's always trade-offs. There will always be trade-offs. You don't get something for nothing. You don't get unprecedented economic activity in the 20s without the bill coming due later.
Yeah, well, I think that's kind of the bummer with just how the Great Depression has been looked at in a modern lens, because we don't actually know, because Hoover and FDR were like just so much more similar in philosophy and what their plans were, and we don't actually know how it would have turned out if Hoover really truly was a do nothing president.
Yeah.
It's like we'll just never know. But now we kind of have these romanticized. There is a romanticized history on FDR taking us through. Maybe some of it's changing now.
Yeah.
I think we're far removed enough where I have seen like some studies within like the last like 20 years and just doing research on like, okay, here's actually we're far away or removed from the Depression. Now we can actually start dissecting this better. I know Milton Friedman was probably like the first economist like 10, 15 years after the fact, who was pretty critical of the New Deal and everything. But that was pretty rare. I think as time goes on, maybe that'll change. But regardless, like I said, with it kind of creating this false dichotomy of, oh, there's, economic instability. Okay, you're immediately going to think back to, well, how did this happen before and how did we get out of it? Oh, this person did nothing, made it worse. Okay, this person did a bunch of things, made it better. Okay, well, we'll just go with that lesser of two evils.
Yeah.
And it's just not the accurate depiction of how it was. And so if Calvin Coolidge, I would like to just like go into an alternate universe just to see, who knows? I don't know. Maybe if Calvin Coolidge remained president, and because if you want to do nothing president, that is your guy. That would be the most accurate depiction. And then we could really see and compare how it would go. Maybe it would be worse. I don't know. I'm just saying.
If only his son had worn socks that day.
Yeah. If only his son didn't die because he played outside and he got
a blister.
Yeah. See our episode on that. But
yeah, it's World War II got us out of the Great Depression. And it's
that's also the debate. What actually got us out of the Depression?
It was World War II. Because we had something to do.
Sure, yeah.
And less people to feed. And like, people were still poor during the war, like victory gardens and like recycling, like sending recycled scrap metal and stuff. It's not like we weren't bursting at the seams with money and food and stuff. It's like everything that you have has to go to the war effort. Like we weren't living high on the hog and then just sending excess.
Yeah.
Like now, if there's a war, I mean, it's hard to say with like a modern military, but like our quality of life might diminish some. I mean, like gas price, like prices of stuff will go up, but we're not like, we don't have enough food, so we're going to ration butter. Like they're not doing that in the modern time. So our quality of life isn't.
We're close with toilet paper.
That was self-imposed. Yeah. And talk about inflation.
Yeah.
Talk about inflation. So the World War II gave us a purpose. It stimulated the economy by both reducing the domestic workforce, so there are more jobs available for fewer people, and like an incentive to kick like a very specific and expensive sector of the economy into high gear: manufacturing, production, shipping, explosives. Like we're building big things and we're building a lot of them right now, and we need everyone to work on them, and everyone else is going to buy them because they're doing whatever they can. So
bombs.
And so like, were there other factors? Sure. But I think World War II was in my mind, was the big factor for what ended the Depression. After World War II.
So the start of World War II or when it ended?
I would say the start.
The
start of World War II is what ended the Great Depression. From a number standpoint, like we were still shaky through the war and after post-war.
Yeah.
But the economic landscape had changed so significantly after the war.
Yeah. Makes sense. Okay.
So that sucks. Let's talk about war.
Yeah. All right.
Round 2.
Yes. No, we'll get into all that. So FDR part 2.
And then 3. And then 4.
Right. So cool. Well, yeah, we'll go ahead and end it there. Make sure to like and subscribe. It's getting late. And we will see you next time.
I don't know. Hit a button.
Yeah.
Do a thing.
You've been on this site before.
We're back.
Yeah.
We took some time off.
Yeah.
And I built a new studio.
All right.
I didn't.